Today I am here with one of my former clients and now friends, Emily East. She is an author, a wife, a mum. She does incredible work around conscious parenting. She has so much wisdom. She has been on an incredible personal development, spiritual journey. I've got to witness that. And as I said, success leaves clues. And I want to bring Emily in today because she's been through an incredible transformation. She has been able to transform her life with her kids, with herself, with her relationship, and in her work. And I believe that people hold wisdom, they hold keys. And I think Emily holds some keys that can be shared today that I would like to share with everyone who is tuning in. So welcome, Emily. It's good to be here with you again. We had a beautiful 10-minute catch up before we jumped on here. So super great to see everything that's happening in your life. But yeah, just to let people into your story, your life, we connected maybe a year ago, I'm guessing, something around that time. Yeah, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you were in your story, just so people can get a bit of an insight into you and what you're about, and maybe where you were 1 year ago from now in your life.
Yes, well, I reached out to you literally a year ago, like June last year, and I was a new mum of two. My sons now are just turning 3 and 2 next week. So 3 and 2. So a year ago, 1 and 2. And I reached out to you because I was finding my motherhood experience extremely hard. It was so hard. And I just didn't really have any other option to get some help. Like, I was really, really struggling. My health was declining. My relationships weren't feeling strong. I wasn't feeling connected. I was lonely. I was depressed. And I just had this intuitive pull that I needed to do something, and I wasn't sure what I needed. I wasn't sure how to get it. And then just intuitively one day, I randomly came across your page and I just saw one of your videos and I was like, that was it. And it didn't really necessarily make sense. I didn't really know what I was wanting when I reached out to you, but it was just that intuitive pull. And we started working together. We did 6 months of, I'm going to say, intense healing. It was very intense from my end, which sort of has led me here today, a year on. So when I sort of first met you and started working with you, I had my background was working with my mind and working with my intelligence and my brain. So I was working in the education system, specifically in the wellbeing space. I was also, coaching personal resilience strategies, wellbeing strategies. Positive psychology was my game. So it was all about using my mind to ease anxieties, to train my brain, into being grateful, into being happy, into seeing the best in everything, which was wonderful. And it sort of then led into the corporate space where I was doing this with big corporations. And it just sort of, when I started then in my early motherhood experience, when I started then to feel really depressed and really lonely and really anxious, the tools that I had in my toolbox weren't working. It wasn't just my mind that could fix me or that to make me feel better. And, I know the power of the brain, but the shadow side of that was, if I felt anything besides joy or gratitude, I thought that something was wrong with me. And I thought that I could just train my brain to see the world differently. And it worked to an extent. It worked to help me feel better, for probably short periods of time. But most of the time, I was spending long, extended parts of my existence in, I'm going to say, depression and loneliness and just those low vibrational pulls. And I think that's what's so brilliant about motherhood, is it really shook me up, because it was like I'm missing my kids' first years, and I don't want to. I don't want to wish this time away. I want to slow it down and I want to reap it. And I know that everyone tells you is, you blink and your kids are grown up. And I just refused to listen to that. I was like, that is not happening to me. I'm going to slow this time down, as painful as it was. And I want to really squeeze it and really juice it for what it is. And the tools that I had wasn't working. I couldn't do that. And when I started working with you, I learned about my nervous system and the bottom up processing. So, I was using the top down, where I was using my mind to train my body. So I was meditating and I was visualizing and I was using my mind to change how I felt within my body. So if I was feeling anxious or angry or really tense in my body, it would feel really uncomfortable in my chest, in my stomach, particularly my jaw and my hands. And the tools that I knew how to fix that was intelligence. And I think our society really highlights and glorifies our thoughts and our mind. And even when people are reaching out to me to work with me today, they're very interested in my psychology background, and that's something that they're sort of drawn to. They are drawn to my intelligence because I think we live in a world where it's highly prioritized. And that's the space that I was living in until I started to learn about the bottom up, and that is using my body to change my mindset. So instead of using my mind to go, okay, calm your breathing, relax your hands, relax your jaw. Yes, that is one way. And yes, that can work, but it wasn't working for me for long enough periods of time. So when I started to work with you, I learned about the nervous system in the body and actually training the nervous system and actually changing the state in my body to then change the thoughts in my mind. So that for me really bridged the gap, because I knew on an intellectual level that I was loved, that I was surrounded by people who loved me, that I have lots to be grateful for, but I felt different. I still felt lonely. And doing the work on my nervous system really bridged the gap between my mind and my heart. And I'm starting now to really lean into the wisdom of my body, because that's where I really feel like the wisdom resides, and coaching other women to do that as well, because we learn from a very early experience becoming mothers that our children's well-being heavily relies on our connection to our intuition and our inner knowing. But we live in a world that prioritizes thoughts over feelings. And so that's the work that I'm doing. And that's the work that I'm doing on myself. And that's the work that I'm sharing with my community. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And doing this work it hasn't been fun or enjoyable. I know the sort of work, the nervous system flexibility training, or that you have this amazing meditation that goes for about half an hour, and it's that nervous system flexibility training that you would get me to do. And honestly, I would be like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this, because it gets me to really tap into the feelings of my body. And to me, if anything felt uncomfortable, it was to be pushed away. It wasn't to be felt. But the more that I did that nervous system training, as much as I honestly sometimes didn't want to, I'm going to say that the easier it got, not in the way that those dark emotions were easy, but it was easier to love them. It was easier to sit with them. It was easier to see why they were there and how I can transform them. And then how I can move through those states, because motherhood, I'm finding I spend a lot of time in, I can get angry and I can feel lonely, and those things are still happening for me. I'm not going to say that they're completely gone, but my ability to move through them with more grace, my ability to communicate what is going on internally has literally changed my life, because it's given me the language and the tools to connect. Because previously to doing this work, I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know what I needed. I just didn't know. I was confused. And then I had my beautiful husband who would be like, what's wrong? How can I help? And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what I need. And if I did try and reach out for some help or for connection, I would blame him and I would attack him, and it would just have us feeling more disconnected than closer together. So I had a really beautiful conversation with my husband last week when I was feeling a little bit disconnected, and he was feeling like he wanted to help. And he was almost feeling like he was responsible and he really wanted to care for me, which was so beautiful. But I was able to really fully express what triggered me, why I was triggered, where that wound came from, and what exactly I needed from him and what I needed to do for myself. And it was so beautiful. It was like, and I honestly felt like I had taken a weight off his shoulders, to be completely honest, because he lives with me and he can see my emotions go up and down all the time. And he just wants to protect me. And he almost feels responsible because he's the masculine in our home. He provides for us, he protects us. And to see me feeling, triggered is hard for him. And so for me to take responsibility for myself in saying, this is not anything to do with you. This is my wound. This is my trigger. I'm feeling angry because of this. It has nothing to do with you. This is what I need to do for myself. But also, here's what you can do for me, because I know my needs now and I know exactly what I need from others to feel that. And he feels lighter and I feel lighter. And, it was just a really beautiful signpost for me to go, wow, look how far I've come in this. So,
that's incredible. Yeah. That's incredible. I love that last piece, Emily. So basically, just to quickly recap, you were very in your mind. You have this incredible intelligence, as I'm sure everyone can see. You're able to articulate ideas, and you have a background in psychology, and you're an author, a writer. You have this ability to be able to cultivate ideas and express in this intelligence, which is really serving you up into a point. And then in order for you to go to the next level of your expansion and your healing, to grow into that next level that life was calling of you in your relationships and your business, you realized there was a gap to be bridged, and it was the gap between bridging your mind with your body and your heart. And then from getting the nervous system on board, which also means like getting your inner child on board and all of the pains and challenges that was coming with that, and being able to be in those uncomfortable emotions so that no longer were you running from the negative feelings and using your mind to kind of bypass those sensations that might have been arising that were just creating further disconnection between you and your inner self, essentially saying, this is bad, wrong, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Instead, you managed to be able to bridge that gap to create connection and essentially wholeness within yourself, be able to sit with those uncomfortable emotions, which are then now beginning to lead into deeper connection with yourself, with your kids, with your partner, and also with the clients that you're helping support simultaneously. Amazing, like absolutely beautiful and incredible that you've been able to integrate that. What I'm curious about and like what I want to share is like, what is like, why, like, what is the driving force that's allowing you, because it isn't comfortable to necessarily feel some of these uncomfortable emotions, depression, anxiety, pain, challenges from our childhood, past potential sexual experiences that weren't fully aligned or hurtful or harmful, or any of these things that we all go through in different ways. We're all human beings. We've all been through challenging experience. Why have you been able to, why do you feel you've been able to actually find the strength and the courage to actually pursue this path? Because it's an unusual thing to do, like to actually heal yourself and come into wholeness and to come into deep connection with self and other is an unusual thing to do at this point. I do think it's going to become like the most popular thing. I think human beings will have this skill set as a is a natural way of being. I think that's what's happening on the planet, but that's a side conversation. But in order to help spread that, to understand that, like, what's the why driving this? Like, how are you able to actually find the inner strength, the courage to actually go and do this inner work and show it more fully for yourself and your kids and your partner? What's the fuel behind it? That's what I want to know.
What's the secret sauce? I would like to say what initially comes to my mind as a mother is it's my kids. I would like to say that. I would like to say that I felt like I almost had no choice, because it's literally my kids' lives that we're talking about. And for me to give them the best experience and to mother them the best I can, I have to do this work, because motherhood has pushed me to such extreme states of my being that it's brought up all my shadows. It's brought up all this work all these wounds that I wasn't necessarily aware of. It's brought it to the surface. So now I'm more aware of them. And I'm like, okay, how can I use this to heal myself, but to be the best mother I can? And it started being about my kids, because if you're a mother listening to this, you know that it is 100%, even just for anyone, actually, not just mothers, it's much easier to put someone else in front of ourselves and to use them as the driving force. And that led me into doing the work for myself. So when my son started to express all these new emotions in having these tantrums, I was like, okay, how can I best support my kid and my children? And what I was doing back then is I would download all the podcasts and I would read all the books and I would use my mind, because that's what I was familiar with. I would use my intelligence to solve this problem. But I was listening to these podcasts and these experts, and I was going to emotionally support my child. I was listening to these things and I was going, this is what I need. This is what it's saying that I need to do for my children, but this is what I need to do for myself. And how am I meant to do that for my children if I can't do that for myself? It doesn't come from a fully integrated and wholehearted way. So that was the first sort of wake up call to go, right, flip the mirror, stop using your kids as an excuse and sort of start to look inward. So I'd like to say that, but I also feel like I've had this drive and this deep knowing about my destiny before I became a mother. I think I've always had it. I think we're almost all born with it. I'm just sort of thinking about this, thinking out loud as I say this, but I remember feeling 100% confident in my body. And I would have this joke with my sisters that I could do anything. And I would say that I can do anything. If there was anything that I wanted to do, I could do it. And I fully believed that, and I fully owned that, even as a young child. And then as you grow up, you become a teenager, life happens, those experiences that you were talking about, and I just sort of forget, and I doubted that part of myself. And I felt like, oh, that's so arrogant for me to think that, or anything, just to have that full belief in myself. And I believe that I've married well. I believe that I've got the right people around me to help support me bring that out in myself. So I think surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, if anything else, just people that believe in you. And you can find that. I found you, and that was one of the best things and one of the greatest things about working with you, is that you believed in me, and that sort of sparks that belief in myself. Probably see my son trying to get in the door behind me.
Real life mother in action.
Yeah. Yeah. So just surrounding myself with people like that, and whether, sorry, I'm a bit distracted. Cut this bit out. Can hear them.
Well, no, this is raw real life. This is life as a mother, whilst navigating business and clients and everything else simultaneously.
I've lost my trail of thought. I'm sorry. You have to ask me another question.
Okay, so you were sharing on the fact that you needed to get, or what was really useful or beneficial for you was to get around people that believed in you. And I think that's such a true thing, right? It's like the power of belief is incredible. And it's not that the other person is believing and putting something else into us. It's the remembering, which I think is beautiful, that before that you shared that your initial belief was that I believe in myself. And then life happened. And then, you know, through our connection, relationship, and coaching, you know, yes, of course, I believed in you. I saw the best in you, I think. And that's something that, you know, I've shared in other interviews, is that I only really work with people, I only work with people that I feel connected to and that I believe in. And that's the difference between, you know, like, I don't know, maybe like kind of therapy or coaching. A lot of therapists take on anyone. Coaching is that, you know, it's like I'm only working with people selectively. There's only 12 people I work with at any one time, and all 12 of those people I truly believe are here to bring something that is beautiful to the world. That could just be their families. And I see their heart, I see their care. And I think in that, you know, there's magic that can happen, because there's genuine care, there's reciprocity. You know, it's like, even though we're not, you know, in a coaching relationship now, we're still connected. You know, I'm still rooting you on. I love hearing about your developments and stories like that, because there's a genuine care and connection there. And it's really beautiful for me to get to be in that space simultaneously. And I think that is where we'd actually be if we lived in a reality beyond, say, money and finances. We would really just be surrounding ourselves with people that we're actually in resonance, that we're actually in alignment with, versus just taking on anything and anyone. I think there is real beauty that can happen in our relationships when we're selective about what's true. It would be lovely to say that I thought about everyone equally and that everyone was equally aligned. That's a beautiful idea, and at a soul level, yes. But at a human level, I think there are certain things that feel more aligned and that don't. And I certainly felt that for you. I certainly felt that alignment, and it's been beautiful to cultivate that relationship and get to see you blossom as you have, and get to see you remember that part of you, that younger part of you that believes in herself. And, you know, you've gone on to do amazing things now. You're coaching clients, you're writing a book. So tell us about that. Like, tell us about what has happened since being able to reconnect with that part that actually believes in herself, that believes that she can do what she sets out to do. And she's connected to her heart and her mind, her intelligence and the wisdom of her body. What has begun to manifest itself in your business, in your life, maybe in your sex life, in your relationships? Like, give us a scoop into what's happening at this time for you right now.
So my book is about to be released. It's probably only a month, 2 at the most, to come out. Amazing. And when I met you, I had half written a manuscript. I'd half written it because, as I sort of said, digging myself out of those black holes that I felt like I was stuck in, I was using my mind, and writing was one way of doing that. And I was researching, you know, initiation rites for women and the female initiation, and sort of mapping that against my own experience, because I felt like if I could attach what my inner experience to research and to science, then it would make sense. But after doing and during doing the inner work with you, it was less about my mind and more about writing from my heart and writing from my true experience. And so there are things that I write in there that I'm like, eek, should I be writing this? And then if I get that feeling, I'm like, yes, put it in. It's too much. It's gold. Great. So just writing from my heart, sharing from my heart, and not worrying if it comes across as wrong, or people, you know, if I'm sharing something about my sex life, for example, and I go, oh, is that a bit too personal? That's when if I'm speaking truly from my heart, that's when people go, yes, like I 100% resonate with you. And it's that alignment that you were talking about. And by doing that, by speaking from that vulnerability and from that heart space, has enabled me to build a community of that aligned women that are feeling like this. And I don't think I would have got that connection if I had have just led with my mind and my intelligence only. So that has been able, you know, to represent that in all of my work. And what that sort of led me to, like, it's not just about, for me, it wasn't just about, okay, 6 months of the healing and then that's sort of it. But once I started to connect to my body and connect to my heart, what that has actually led me to has been life-changing. So I'm not necessarily making all my decisions just based from my mind. I'm letting my heart lead the way. And what that's sort of done is that sort of led me to being involved in more group coaching containers. I've just finished my central somatic facilitator training, which is where I help women release trauma through essentially dance and movement. And I did that because my heart led the way. It wasn't a decision that I made intellectually about where do I want my professional career to go, what would sell more books of mine, what would get me more clients. It was more like a feeling that I can't even explain, to go, yes, my heart and my soul is meant to do this course, and I did it. And what that sort of led me to has just been insane. And so I've been able to incorporate that into my book and my work as well. So my book is it's called Motherhood, The Revealing of Your True Self. And it's not necessarily about how to parent, but it's about the transition a woman makes from maiden to mother, and how we can soften into our beings, and how essentially, it's in the title, how to reveal your true self, because I feel like most of our motherhood experience is not shown, is not out there. So I wanted to bring the shadows of my being that have been evoked through motherhood and make them seen and put them out there. Literally, it's my whole heart on the table. And then how I've actually managed to transform them. And instead of trying to fit my old self into my new life as a mother, I've surrendered, I've let go of that old me, and I've fully stepped into this new me and expanded into this new me. And I think that's where a lot of my angst was coming from, was trying to force my new self back into my old life, and instead of surrendering and just accepting that things are going to be different, but they're going to also be better. And so that's sort of the journey with me. I talk about missing libidos and how I can track them down. I talk about, judging ourselves. I talk about connecting back with our bodies, connecting with our intuition, our mother's knowing. I talk about, surrendering and that sort of thing. So it's all about inner healing that you can do as a mom. I talk about how we can release anger. That was something that was coming up for me. I felt like I was snapping, I was yelling, how I managed to do that, how I'm still managing to do that. I'm not perfect now. I talk about perfection as well, now that sort of comes up, is how we can cultivate connection with ourselves, and how that fosters down and how that ripples into connection with our children. So it's not, there are little snippets in there about parenting, but it's all with the mother in mind first. And it's all about how we can do that for ourselves. And when we do that for ourselves, like when we heal ourselves, when we set boundaries for ourselves, when we let go of perfection, when we surrender ourselves, what that actually does for our children, and then how to foster that for our children. So, yeah.
Amazing. So there's so much in that. And what's beautiful about that, Emily, is that I think people can see, I can see, because I've witnessed your journey, that you are an embodiment of those ideas. And yes, we're all in process. We're always in process, new level, new devil. But you have truly been through that transformation. You have truly embodied a lot of these principles to a really high degree, which I think is beautiful, that's going to be infused with your work. And I'm sure anyone listening can feel the depth of your being that you've went to, and the care in your heart to actually create something that is actually in support of other people. And I think the whole reason, linking back to before, is the reason that you're doing this is because you have such a care. You have a care for your children. You have a care for your heart. You have a care for your community. And I think that comes across in your work as well. So that's super beautiful. What is the journey, Emily, that people are going to go through if they pick up this book, which is going to be released in the next 2 months? Do you have a release date at this point?
Not yet, but it'll be about a month or two.
Okay, so it's in the next couple of months. So by the end of summer, We're at
Mhm.
2022. Had to check. COVID kind of has the whole what time are we in situation happening. So 2022. So it's gonna be late summer 2022.
Mhm.
What is the journey that someone's going to get to go through if they pick up that book, which is, and I love the title, by the way, but what is the journey that someone's going to get to go through, and who have you really written this book for? Who's it for?
I've written it for other mothers or other women wanting desire to have children. But in saying that, we all feminine has all of our beings, masculine or feminine, we all have the potential to mother and to nurture and to care. And so I really wrote this book with the intention to make the reader feel really seen and to feel really held and to laugh a little as well. So, I've written it in a really lighthearted way. I want the reader to just laugh and to be like, yes, this is me. Like, we can laugh at ourselves, we can hold ourselves a little bit lighter, and that we're not alone, and to actually feel that deep within your bones that you're not alone. Because as I sort of said, I felt lonely in my body, but my mind said I wasn't alone. But to really feel it within your body when you read this, that you are not alone, and that you can have the motherhood experience that you desire and that you want. And it's about understanding that you can have it. And if you can see it, that you can have it. And if you desire it, you can also make it your reality. So the journey that you'll take on when you read is to feel like, yes, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is my experience. I'm feeling confused. I'm feeling a little bit lost. And I talk about the word lost a lot because I truly feel like that is the word that most mothers explain their early motherhood experiences. They feel lost. They're not sure who they are anymore. We get this really beautiful opportunity to redefine our values and to almost rebuild our being. And that's the way that I saw it when I was experiencing all these emotions. I thought, I have two options right now. I can, try and squeeze my new self into my old life, or I can literally rebuild my whole being from the ground up. I can create this, I can create me. And who do I want to be now? Because I have a choice. This identity crisis that we feel when we're mothers is actually a way to rebirth who we actually want to be. And we get to decide that. We get to choose who that is. So this book is about the tools into recognizing, what do you value now? Who do you want to be? What reality do you want to create? And understanding that you can have it because you deserve it and you were born with the tools to create it. And that's why I dive into the language such as lost. You were never lost. You can stop looking, you can stop searching. You were born with this knowing. You were born, it's literally woven into the fabric of your being. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's always been there. We lose touch with it. We become disconnected from it, but it is always there. And it's just about nurturing that and unveiling it and revealing it. And I really think that motherhood for me has been such an intense experience that it has brought me in touch with that part of myself. And that's what this book is about. It's about how I've done that, the practices and the tools that I've used for myself, and then sort of worked with other women in doing these practices as well. So, from relationships, if you've got a partner, it's about rekindling the spark, because we know as mums we sort of feel disconnected from our bodies, we lose our sex drive, and how I've sort of navigated those changes as well. So that's the journey. It's about understanding that there is nothing wrong with you. I'm not trying to fix anyone. I'm not trying to make everyone all perfect clones of these perfect mothers. It is just about revealing your true self, bringing your inherent gifts into the world, and not just for yourself, but for your family and then for the world, because you were born. There is no mistake that you are here. And if you think about the chance of you actually being here, of this sperm and this egg in this point of time, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that you are here, and it is by no means any accident. You are meant to be here at this point in time for a specific reason. You were born with that reason. You were born with that gift. And it's about remembering that, and it's about revealing that and understanding that it's never lost. It's just about finding the tools. And I think that motherhood is literally one of the best experiences to give us the opportunity to rebuild ourselves and to recreate our reality and our being. So that's the journey that this book is.
Wow, what a journey. And yeah, what I'm hearing in that, Emily, is that motherhood is essentially a rites of passage that you have to go through. And I'm explaining this from a man's perspective. So, I think I'm on point, but like you're naturally having to go through an archetypal change. And as a man, I have to go through archetypal changes so I can relate in some ways. You're going through this archetypal change from maiden into mother. And what you've done in your book, as you've been through this journey, it's a truly transformative journey, of which when you resist it and you try and live in the maiden, you're filled with essentially suffering. And it's the embracing of this dissolution of former self and everything that meant into a rebirthing process of this new version of yourself that can be bigger and brighter and more wise and more loving and more connected. And the transition on how to go through that in your book is to help people through your own experience, through shining light in ways that were useful for you, to reignite, to help others remember the wisdom that exists within them, and passing those tools forward. But as you were sharing that as well, there was something beautiful that a friend had shared with me just 2 days ago. And I'd heard the story of the caterpillar and the butterfly so many times, but she shared it in a new way. She described it from a more scientific perspective. Like I heard the metaphor, and I understand that the caterpillar turns to mush, and then eventually it turns into a butterfly. But what she shared with me was that when the caterpillar turns to mush, there are these things that have been studied and can be seen that are called imaginal cells. And what happens is when the caterpillar turns to mush, these imaginal cells get reactivated. And in that process, the turning to mush of the caterpillar tries to resist and kill off these new cells. But eventually the imaginal cells burst through, and that's what creates the blueprint, the genetic foundation for the butterfly that already existed inside that caterpillar. But there was that resistance even to change into that new form. And as she was sharing that with me, what I was like, oh my God, that's like our souls, our spirits, the blueprint of ourselves is already within us. That intelligence is already within. And we do have to let go. We do have to turn to mush, whether you be a man or a woman or whatever transition you're in. We have to allow the old self to die, which wants to cling on to safety, to the known reality of what we have lived so far. But as long as we're in that, we're suffering. We're living as a caterpillar when we could live as butterflies. We can allow our souls and our spirits to come through with the intelligence, the imaginal cells that were already within us. And that's what we get to birth. And I think that's what you've birthed in your experience, right? Like that's what you've been through. That's the transition you've been through. And that's what your book's about. Am I roughly on point?
100%. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that for sure. We're mush.
Yeah, we gotta send it much, but turning to mush is effing painful. Oh my goodness. Like actually letting go of past versions of ourselves, which have protected us and kept us safe, and finding the tools and ways to do that, which is, a lot of the work that we've done and you do. It can be painful, and doing it alone, that was a mistake for me. Like turning to mush with other people's support, that was game changing for me. But I'm curious, what's just before we finish up, there's a few more questions. One is, what are the 5 tools, practices, it could be even mindsets, ways of being, like 5 things that have been really impactful? There could be direct tools, there could be more indirect or more nuanced tools, insights that you've had over this past year of your transformation journey that have been really useful and really beneficial to you.
Inner child work has been like mic drop. Inner child work, boom, there you go. It's been really life-changing for me as a mum, because I can see it, how it can play out being on the other side of it. But it's also given me the language and the tools to understand myself more and to get my needs met. Which probably leads me to my second one, is understanding my needs and knowing what they are, and knowing myself and trusting myself, and understanding what I need to flourish, what I need to do well, what I need to do to feel well, and not and what I how I can give that to myself, but also how other people play in that. So, I danced for a long time between, I have this beautiful husband, Zach. Shouldn't it be his responsibility to make me feel better? Like, that's what a marriage is. Even though I might necessarily know, yes, I've got to fill my own cup up, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that 1,000 times. I dance between how much responsibility should I take and how much responsibility should the loved ones and who I deliberately bring into my life to help me. So understanding my own needs, what I can do to meet my own needs, and then how I can be topped up by others, has been life-changing as well. Surrender is such a big one for me as well. And if I actually think back, I've read this question somewhere. It was like, think back in your life and think about all the greatest things that have happened to you. And I did this, and I did a bit of an audit, and all of those great things happened not because I was chasing them, but because life guided me there and I took the opportunities. So like meeting Zach, for example, he wasn't a relationship that I was in that I was forcing to make happen or to make work. It was, we met by chance, and we fell in love quite easily. So that's an example. My yoga training, for example, that wasn't something that I was like, I'm chasing that. Which one am I going to do? It was just an opportunity that popped up and that I took it. So letting go of that control and that chase, and actually just letting life guide the way. And by doing that, I've actually opened space, not just physically, but energetically, for opportunities I didn't even think would be possible for me, have literally been invited into my life because I have room for them. So that's surrender. So that's a great question. You could ask yourself, what are the best things that have happened in your life and how did you get there? Because I can guarantee you that there will be ones there that life guided you to. It wasn't something that you chased. Masculine and feminine energies have been really huge for me as well. Understanding my own psyche and my husband's, and really knowing the difference. So that started for me understanding the difference between our brains, but then understanding the difference, within our emotional states has also been really helpful. Movement and dancing, and what that can do. And it's not just about the joy of dancing, but what that actually does for our bodies, and how we relate to trauma, how our identity shape, everything is sort of held within the body, and what movement can actually do has been incredible. And I'd also have to say, shifting my energy from doing into being. So instead of the hustle culture of go, 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 this is what I need to achieve, this is what I need to do. For me to be a good mum, I need to provide this, I need to do this, they need to go to the cool parks, we need to do really cool activities at home, I need to cook them really great food, do. And I've really shifted that into, who am I being? Who am I being? What energy am I bringing? Because I might have the best toys, I might have the best food, but if you walk into my house and you can cut that stress energy with a knife, then that is not the environment that I want to be in. It's not the environment that my kids want to be in. So I've learned to let go of what I'm doing for my children. And, we'll have a messy house and we'll have music on and we'll be dancing because that feels good, and that's the energy that I want them to be in. And the more that I soften into my being, the more I soften into my energy, that is productive, and that is how I get my kids to eat veggies. It's not by a stress culture, it's by that relaxed state with no pressure. So the doing versus being has also been huge for me. So I think that's 5.
5 plus.
Yeah.
You excelled.
Like
You excelled, and no. It was incredible. There's so much wisdom within that, and Yeah, especially in that last piece, I think we did an exercise together, right, where we talked about your most meaningful memories. And I love that you
Mm,
went on and done more of those types of exercises. And I think what we begin to learn when we do that type of introspection is that I've never heard of all of my clients, and included all of my own personal introspection. I've never heard anyone say it was about the toys, it was about the big thing, or all of these external things that we think are necessary, or like
mm,
every single experience that I've ever heard and ever experienced, it was always in the details of how people felt in that experience, and the way your dad or your grandfather or your mother
mm,
or whoever you're with, you were in a felt experience. And I think that's the beauty of being able to heal ourselves, to reveal ourselves, and to live in a place of predominant space of connection. And when we're not in that space of connection, we're able to be with the challenges of that
mm,
from a place of connection. You know, those places
mm,
are allowed to move through us. And what we find is when we do that is that we actually predominantly end up living in more a place of connection, because we're not feeling like parts of us are being pushed away. So we're able to bring more of our fullness to others. And because we can be with ourselves in the challenge, when someone else is in a challenge, we can also be with them. So we, even when
mm,
there is someone else in disconnection, because we can be with the discomfort, we can be with them in the discomfort and then create greater levels of intimacy. So it's just this like win, 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 more
mm,
connected experience that we get
mm,
to to go
mm,
through. So much wisdom in what you
mm,
shared.
mm.
And I just want to ask one last question: like, where can people find you? Where can people come and check you out and connect with you and connect with your work? And you've got meditations out there. You've got a book launching. You've got one-on-one coaching. You post incredible content on social media. I know you're on Facebook and you're on Instagram. And you've got a website, but let people know where they can come and find you and connect with you.
Yeah, well, the best place is probably Instagram. I put some content on there, which is just Emily_East, which then obviously has links to my websites and my upcoming offerings. And, there's little workshops there as well. So I like to think there's a little something there for everyone. There's a few meditations that I've created that are really close to my heart, that are free for you to download. So you can get my voice into your little head, into your little ears. And then there's some sort of deeper things as well, like some workshops. I've just done a workshop recently about um, activating your intuition, and we do that through movement as well. So that's one that was really fun. It was really fun to create. So it's there as well. It's just an hour workshop that you can get your hands on as well. And then of course my book that's coming out too. So there's lots there, but I would 100% love to connect if you felt connected to me, or if you have any questions about anything that I've sort of spoken about. If you're feeling called to 100% reach out. I'd love to connect.
Amazing. And you respond to your DMs, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Emily, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been beautiful to witness your transformation and just everything that you've been through. Like, who you are being today is so beautiful and incredible. And yeah, I just got so much love for you and your family, and it's been beautiful to witness. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick, for everything, for helping me change my life.
You did the work. You did the work. My pleasure. My pleasure. All righty. So that's it, everyone. Thank you for listening. Reach out to Emily, give her a shout out, or send her some love. But that's it from us. Have a beautiful day wherever you are, and I shall speak to you soon.